Hello, my name is Meredith Clay, and I'm a communications intern at the Karsh Institute of Democracy. Today I'm here with Jordan Love, the academic curator at the Fralin Museum of Art. We are in the exhibit for Joan Mitchell. And so this exhibit is in celebration of Joan Mitchell, an industry-changing abstract expressionist who made her mark despite being a minority as a woman during the time, beginning in the 1940s. Why is this exhibit important this Women's History Month?
I think there's a couple of things going on that make this exhibition important. First of all, it's the 100-year anniversary of her birth. If she were alive with us today, she would have been turned 100 in February. So her foundation wanted to celebrate her legacy as a trailblazing woman abstract painter and who kind of broke through the glass ceiling of the New York art scene in the 1940s and 50s. And so they approached all different museums across the country to ask if they could put their Joan Mitchells out in honor of her anniversary. And also, it just was a happy coincidence that we also would have that up during Women's History Month. So it seemed like the perfect time to have this larger celebration of her and her work and her legacy. And so we are one of about 70 museums that have Joan Mitchell's work up right now. If you go to the Joan Mitchell Foundation website, they have a map of all the participating Joan Mitchells. So if you're a Joan Mitchell superfan, you could make the ultimate road trip this spring and see as many Joan Mitchells as you could ever want.
Lovely. Thank you so much. So my second question is, art plays a crucial role in shaping and sustaining democratic culture by fostering expression and dialogue. Mitchell lived in a post-war world when democracy was positioned against authoritarianism during the Cold War. Was her work influenced by this? If so, how?
Yeah, well, she was part of a larger artistic push that was built off the fact that art no longer had to represent something. It didn't have to look like an apple. It didn't have to look like a portrait. It didn't have to look like anything. It could be free expression. It was breaking all the rules of that had started to be broken before World War II. But coming out of World War II, the shock, the sacrifice, the horror that a lot of people had witnessed, it just didn't seem like the old way of representing things in art was sufficient. People had a lot of trauma, people had a lot of emotions from everything they'd been through and from the Great Depression before that, that it was almost like there needed to be an art that could just allow people to express themselves without it being about something, without it being a narrative, without it being the old way of doing things. And so she was really a part of that bigger movement that was about expressing yourself through movement, expressing yourself through color, and doing it in kind of an interesting, groundbreaking way. And so this is what we're seeing from her. She was one of, it was very much a boys' club still,
Right.
but she was part of that movement who said, "No, wait a second, I'm going to do this too."
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so that actually leads me to my next question, which is self-expression and nonconformity parallel democratic ideals of individualism and free speech. So how did Mitchell embody self-expression and nonconformity in her art?
Well, if you remember, or if you think about what was expected of women in the 1940s, during the war, they had taken on roles that they normally wouldn't have taken. They were working in factories. They were filling a lot of the jobs that young men had left when they went off to war. And all of a sudden, it built this confidence. It built this sisterhood. It built this community. Women realized their potential. And then all the GIs come back and they're expected, okay, go back into the kitchen. You don't need a career. And a lot of women are like, wait a second, I don't know about that. Like, I had a good time being self-sufficient. I believed in myself and I did it. I accomplished it. And so Joan Mitchell was not one of those people who was just going to get married, settle down, and have a family. Like she kind of questioned what she really wanted. And what she really wanted was to self-expression in art. She really wanted to participate in that. And there were several women artists, Helen Frankenthaler and others, who did get married, but they weren't going to settle down and do the traditional thing that was expected of them. It's groundbreaking because they decided to carve their own path and not do what everyone thought they should do.
Their resistance was through creation.
Their resistance was through creation. And they were part of a whole group of artists who were already doing art that other people question, is this art? You know, and so, in fact, we still have people question this. People saying, oh, my kid could do that.
Right.
But it's really about them doing this at that moment when it hadn't been done before. So now we've lived with abstract art for almost 100 years now. And so it kind of seems second nature to us, but we forget how revolutionary that was. And then on top of this whole art movement, for her to be revolutionary in wanting a major art career for herself when most women just did what was expected, was groundbreaking. And it's great for us as a democracy to remember that thinking bigger and pushing the boundaries is part of freedom of expression.
Amazing, thank you. And finally, how did she challenge gender norms in art to impact democratic culture? We touched on this quite a bit.
Yeah, so it was really, I think it's because she did live 100 years ago. It's hard for us when we as women have grown up with our parents saying, you can do anything you want. It's hard to imagine those same parents telling us, well, we don't want to send you to college because it's a waste of money. You're just going to get married.
Right.
We're gonna send your brother to college because he needs to get a job. So not having heard that doesn't give us the sense of limitation that no one believes in us. You know, when my grandmother has been gone now for 10 years, but she died at nearly 100, so she was a little bit older than Joan Mitchell. And I said, Grandma, did you have any regrets? And she said, I wish I'd gone to nursing school.
Yeah.
Her one regret was not going after something for herself.
Right.
She loved her family, she loved her husband, but she regretted not getting to do the things that then she saw her daughter do, my mother, and then me do. You know, so when you see Joan Mitchell, you realize she's one of the first ones of that generation who's like, no, I'm not going to be limited in what I'm going to do.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's all I have, but thank you so much for all this. It was super interesting and I learned a lot.